And for those of us who may not know what GRC stands for, it stands for Governance, Risk, and Compliance. And we are super excited to be here today to talk about this. And I kind of want to set the tone for our conversation today. And that tone is, I want you to think about assumptions and interpretations for a second. You've heard that cliche or that the thing we say, assumptions will make a jackass out of you or me. And today I want to step back a little bit and take a look at our assumptions and interpretations of laws, standards, and regulations. We interpret laws all the time. For example, how many of you will take a look at a speed limit sign that says 30 and you drive maybe 35, 36? You interpret the speed limit sign and you interpret it as what you think the speed limit should be versus what the posted speed limit is. So today we're going to tackle 3 areas. We're going to talk about cybersecurity law.
Kelli, I got to stop you because I don't have your screen yet.
Oh, no. Well, we've got a problem there, don't we?
Houston.
Yeah.
Okay, so I might have some technical difficulties going on, huh? Okay, so what can you see or not see, Ryan?
No slides.
I don't have anything yet. Your screen share went away.
Yeah, so go back down to the screen share and then see if you can share your screens again. The slides are also in the slides resources channel, so if you want to follow along, or you can go ahead and download those. It's also in the resources here on Zoom. You can go into there and click on documents and you can
Now we've got
grab
them.
the slides there. So slides are up. We're good to go. I'm heading backstage.
Yes, awesome. Thanks, guys. I appreciate that. It makes it a little easier for me. So as I was saying, we were talking about assumptions. We were talking about interpretations of law and what we're going to talk about today. But let me start first with an introduction of my colleague and dear friend. So we've got CJ Cox with us. I'm Kelli Tarala, and what you see on my screen is a little bit about the two of us. So those of you who are in cybersecurity and privacy, you may have some certifications, the CISSP, CISA, ABC, and 1, 2, 3, and you might have a little bit of alphabet soup behind your name. So I kind of like that idea of alphabet soup. So I had to put a picture of alphabet soup on the slide. We have a chess master with us who not only is really good at playing chess, he likes to read. And then I put a little icon of running. I like to run. So CJ, please say hi.
Hi. I am not a chess master and I don't play one on TV. I play at the lowest levels at the chess club, which is better than the average person on the street, maybe, but not much.
And CJ, you've been doing GRC and Chief Information Security Officers for a few years now, haven't you?
Yes, I've been CISO for 8 years because that's how long I've been at BHIS about now. So,
Oh, that's pretty exciting stuff.
acid
Okay,
bath.
so our agenda for today, I was talking a little bit about this before we had our little technical hiccup there. We're going to talk about 3 main areas today. We're going to talk about cybersecurity law. We're going to talk about privacy law. We're also going to talk about artificial governance. And we're doing something new, so I'm going to ask for your faith and your patience with us. We are going to do some trivia polling questions in this session. And I believe this is the first time that we've done this. So let's get ready to rumble. We've got some exciting stuff going on here. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is cybersecurity definitions and common terms. I've got a few things listed here. We have a few things listed here. A lot of these terms, I know some of you are very well familiar with. We've got guardrails, like Jason mentioned earlier on our webinar here. We've got policies, we've got frameworks, we have technologies like rubber duckies and flippers. I know we've got some flipper fans in the Discord channel. We've got honeypots, we've got evil twins. What's the point in this? So the point wasn't to put a bunch of words on the slide. The point of this was to say, listen, this is a complex area. There's a lot of specializations. There's a lot of specialists, and cybersecurity is a very deep and in-depth field. And I believe, CJ, we have a question for our audience.
Oh, that was a nice segue there. So I didn't even have to guess. So what year did the events in Clifford Stoll's book Cuckoo's Egg start happening? And do not Google this, folks. This is like, you just got to take a wild guess. Because Kelli guessed wrong on her own question yesterday. That was fun.
CJ,
What?
don't tell everybody.
I think it's funny. Who would know? This is random. Like, oh, it must have been the 30s.
A very good book. I hope Clifford Stoll's Cuckoo's Egg is in your library. If it's not already, it is a very good book. Okay, did we give an opportunity for everybody to respond in Discord or in Zoom?
It pops up on our Zoom screen. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. I'm going to go on to the next slide here. Like I said, this is our first time doing this. Okay, so and it popped up again on me. So let's talk about the body of law. Okay, how do we make decisions? We talked about that speed limit sign. We talked about some other issues a little earlier, but what do we mean by the body of cybersecurity law? Well, that, my friends, is a big question. It is actually a patchwork of pieces of laws, guidelines, and all sorts of things. Let me just hit on some of these. This is what makes cybersecurity law such an interesting area to practice in. Oh, and I should have mentioned this probably like days ago. I am not a lawyer. I don't pretend to be a lawyer. I don't want to be a lawyer. I'm perfectly happy doing what I am. So please don't construe anything or that I or CJ say as legal advice from us or from Black Hills. Thank you very much. I got my disclaimer in. Okay.
Any
so
reuse or rebroadcast of this transmission is strictly prohibited without the express position of the NFL.
Perfect. Okay, so when we talk about the body of cybersecurity law, it literally is patchwork of pieces. If you've ever done any quilting, you know what I'm talking about here, or you've got your grandmother's quilt. We have things that go back to the 1300s. We've got ideas, ancient concepts around negligence and contracts. We have doctrines of non-binding guidelines from regulatory agencies. What do I mean by that? Well, we've got ideas, guidelines from regulatory agencies that say do good things. We've got agencies, and I'm going to talk about this a little further in our presentation, such as Health and Human Services, Office of Civil Rights. We have actual laws from regulatory agencies, such as the SEC and the new SEC disclosure law, or relatively new, I guess I should say. Other concepts that we deal with in the body of cybersecurity law include industry best practices. We've got trade law, we've got national security law, we've got armed conflict law, we've got trade law, we've got all sorts of different areas that impact how we function within cybersecurity. And CJ, do we have another question?
Oh boy, do we. So this one's pretty easy. Is the Federal Trade Commission a law enforcement agency? It's a 50-50 flip here, I think. Hosts and panelists cannot vote. This is unfair. I was going to skew all the results.
CJ, do you know the answer?
I actually do, but then I cheated. We talked about it yesterday.
Well, but I know people are responding to the trivia question. We'll give them just a couple seconds more. And CJ, I would love to hear the answer to this question.
Now? Yes, they are. Just about everybody in the government is, though. So it's not like they've got some corner on the commodity. You can't move without getting busted. Yes, the answer is yes. So this is one of the things like that I wanted to gap in the CISSP, right? Yeah, that section on laws and regulations. And you're just like, do I really? I guess I have to memorize a few of those along with bollards and 8-foot high security fences. But the law becomes increasingly interesting the further into this you get. So that whole patchwork thing, like, yeah, it's rough. It's that thing that adds another dimension onto all the technical things you have to keep up with. It's like laws changing faster than the technology almost now.
Amen, brother. Well said. Okay, so we've got some more juicy things to talk about. Okay, now this is where it's going to get even more interesting. What is the definition of cybersecurity? And I know all of you friends out there have an opinion on this. Well, it turns out everybody has an opinion on it. But let me provide you some background that may be a little different than your opinion. Did you know that the word cybersecurity appears at least 200 times in United States federal legislation? But interestingly enough, the federal code doesn't actually define it. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the federal code, so what the federal code is it's a packaging of regulations across all United States agencies and basically says, this is our codified system of law. So the federal code, if you can give you an analogy, is this massively big book that's bound that says, hey, here are all of our regulations that we're going to abide by. Interestingly enough, not only does the federal code not actually define it, we have states that actually have their own definitions of cybersecurity, like the state of Michigan, the state of Connecticut. We have international bodies such as ISO that define cybersecurity. And I believe CJ has a question for us right now.
I do, but I also want to ask people in Discord, type what you think a really simple, easy definition is. And then I want to know what Jerry's was at some point. But I have a whole bunch of questions on 7. How come? Where does NIST define cybersecurity? That's 6B already flashing up. There's 3 questions. When was the FTC created? That's really random. What's the other one? Is there a 7C? Bonus trivia. Who was the first person tried under the Computer Abuse and Fraud Act? This is a good one.
Okay.
That's actually.
Well, hey, you're getting ahead of yourself there, my friend.
I am. I just
Okay.
have 3. We're on slide 7. I have 3 questions.
I love working with you.
Do you?
Okay. So we're talking about the definition of cybersecurity. So those of you who don't know what NIST is the National Institution of Standards and Technology. And I got to make a quick sidebar here. NIST came out with this update to the cybersecurity framework. And if you have not seen Nathan Sweeney's presentation on the NIST cybersecurity framework version 2.0, it is beautiful. It is sexy. You'll love it. Go check it out. So we spent a lot of time looking at what NIST recommends for us to do for cybersecurity. But CJ, does NIST actually define cybersecurity, and where do they do that?
Well, you said they didn't, but they do have a glossary. And unfortunately, I guess it doesn't have cybersecurity there. But I had my own personal opinion on this which I think it's super simple. I think NIST actually messed it up, but they talk about confidentiality, integrity, and availability of your information resources. I think that's the best definition.
The CIA triad, not the CIA that we see in movies, a different CIA, right?
Our important one, the one that we all live by here. So.
Okay, and sometimes when we're joking, we talk about the cybers and how it's sometimes fun and sometimes it isn't fun. But now that when we like to call things the cybers, we've got this term cyberspace. CJ, is there a question about this?
About the cyberspace?
What's the question, my friend?
Who coined the phrase cyberspace?
I have a feeling some of our friends have read this book. Did I give it away?
We have lots of friends that read lots of books. It's very eggheady.
Okay, CJ, do we have an answer?
Yes, that's William Gibson in the book The Marginalian. Marginality?
No.
Marginality?
No. It's actually a necromancer. That's my fault, people. I gave CJ a link to an article. I wasn't clear on that. I
got my own question wrong. It's great.
Okay, so cybersecurity, cyberspace, these words have been with us for a while, but that doesn't mean we necessarily understand what they mean or how they're being used. So again, the point of this slide is a lot of different people are in the space of defining what cybersecurity actually means. But I want to talk about what the body of law thinks cybersecurity means. And there are 4 main categories that we're going to talk about within the cybersecurity law, or the body of cybersecurity law. We're going to talk about protection of personal information. We're talking about protection of property, protection of critical infrastructure, and product safety and product liability. Okay, I know some of you are getting your lawyer hats on now. I'm super excited about this. So protection of personal information. I think this group that we're spending this time with today, CJ, understands what protection of personal information means, but they may not be familiar with where this idea came from. There's something called the Fair Information Practices, or FIPS, that came out back in the late 60s, early 1970s. And what FIPS is our guidelines or principles about how to protect personal information. Now, the FIPS, if you're not familiar with them, they have been retired, but their guiding principles and their bones, their essence can be found in laws that we have today, like GDPR, the Canadian Personal Information Protection and Electronic Documents Act, also known as PIPEDA. Say it with me, PIPEDA. And also we see it in the OECD guidelines. And OECD is the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. They came out with some privacy guidelines in 1980, but these privacy guidelines were actually updated in 2013. And we'll be talking about OECD later in this presentation as well. No, I'm asking legitimately now, CJ, do we have a question under this section?
So what U.S. government official recently said, I bet Jerry knows this one too, China's plan is to land low blows against civilian infrastructure to try to induce panic and break America's will to resist. If you don't know the person's name, guess what position they hold.
So this looks like critical infrastructure, even though the quote says civilian infrastructure. So while you all are thinking about that, I think this group probably knows what critical infrastructure is, but critical infrastructure, gas lines, electricity, food supplies, manufacturing. So that also is part banking. Oh, yes. Good deal. Also, I skipped over one. Excuse me. We've got protection of property. Protection of property, I think, is pretty straightforward here. We're talking about the protection of theft, damage, or trespassing. And dang, we missed a question there. But CJ, did we get an answer on that U.S. official?
I like someone said Pete Buttigieg, but no, it was FBI Director Christopher Wray.
FBI Director Wray had a press conference a couple weeks ago, and if you haven't seen anything about it, I really suggest you just quickly look it over. Maybe in our world, we're very aware of what the Chinese is trying to do or trying to gain access to our critical infrastructure, but it was really good to see the director of the FBI say, hey, I'm raising a flag here. This is something we all need to be aware of, and it's increasing. We're getting more and more increasing pressure on our critical infrastructure from the Chinese. CJ, is there a question about the Computer Abuse and Fraud Act?
Yeah, there was somewhere.
Or Ryan? Okay.
Oh, I missed that one? I thought I gave all three of those. Who was the first person tried under the Computer Abuse and Fraud Act? Son of an NSA person?
Oh, no giving hints, CJ.
Son of an NSA. That said we weren't allowed to curse here. No
Okay, while people are putting in their answers there, the last category under the body of cybersecurity law, we have product safety and product liability. What does this mean? Well, some of you already know that we've had recent legislation on IoT, or Internet of Things devices. We have the Internet of Things Cybersecurity Improvement Act that was passed in 2020. We have FDA guidance on medical devices. This came out in September 26, 2023. The FDA issued its final guidance on cybersecurity in medical devices. So TLDR, too long didn't read, manufacturers must address vulnerabilities, easy for me to say, provide regular updates and patches, submit a software bill of materials, and comply with any additional FDA guidance. So before I get too deep into this, what was the answer to that question, CJ?
It wasn't Christopher Wray. It's these are hard to find. God dang it.
Son of an NSA.
Yeah, I know. I had it. Robert Morris, the Morris worm.
Yes, yes. You can imagine
Yeah.
that his father may have just a wee bit of embarrassment. Um, Mr. Morris, the son, was tried under the Computer Abuse and Fraud Act for releasing the Morris worm. I'm sure you guys all remember that. I wonder, is that on the CISSP exam? Maybe it should be. Okay. I'm going to go on to our next slide here. And I shamelessly stole something from our friend Jerry and his hot takes. If you're not familiar with, like we're talking about a pre-show banter, every morning at 8 a.m., you can hear more of Jerry's hot takes. They are entertaining, they're informative. So kudos to Jerry, and I shamelessly borrowed this. A couple quick hot takes here I want to talk about. Most of you are familiar with the SEC cybersecurity disclosure. Companies must describe the material aspects. Okay, I want to pause there for a second because we are getting into lawyer land for a second here. A material breach is a contract term that means significant failure of performance under a contract that allows the aggrieved party to sue for breach of contract. Excuse me. So if you see the word material, that's basically what it means. And this happened at the end of 2023. Remember, disclosures must be made within 4 business days of determining that the incident is material. If you're a publicly traded company, this may have major organization kind of hop on their toes a little bit more. Our second hot take that happened within the last couple of weeks is the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC's non-compete ruling. Now, this is very interesting because some of you may have signed a non-compete clause with your employer. That basically means I can't go to a new employer doing the same things that I used to do. This is amazing. Those non-compete agreements were ruled unfair under Section 5 of the FTC code. And it says it's a violation. It's considered an unfair employment action for employers to enter into non-compete with workers. So yeah, hallelujah. This is huge. And I'm really excited to see this. So those were a couple of our cybersecurity hot takes. Now let's talk real quickly about cybersecurity law resources. If you're not familiar with the International Association of Privacy Professionals, IAPP.org, they have some amazing resources for not only privacy resources, but cybersecurity law resources. I referred heavily to this book by James X. Dempsey. You can find it at IAPP. He's constantly providing supplemental material to the book. That's the second link on the slides. CJ, would you like to tell us about the Cyber Law Podcast?
Oh, Steptoe?
Yes.
They're on hiatus. Like, he may never come back. You said it, episode 501. He had episode 501. And I guess lots of people are begging him. So if you know about that, beg him some more, because that is a great podcast. It's, I find that, it's not just, it is a lot of lawyers, but it's always pretty interesting, and they get into technology, and especially for someone at my level where I'm not the hacker boy, I really like that. And it's great to keep you up to speed on what's going on. But
And I'll add to what you're saying there, CJ. It's a nice dance or an interaction between technologists and lawyers. So they go back and forth, they share ideas. I learned so much from listening to the Cyber Law Podcast. And I'll even go back to episodes in the 200s and 300s and learn something about an area or an issue that they're talking about. We've heard them talk about artificial intelligence, privacy, GDPR, again, fabulous resource. And the last one on here, if you're not familiar with lawfaremedia.com, they are a blogging and podcast organization that addresses technology, public policy, cybersecurity. Fabulous resources at lawfare.com, or excuse me, lawfaremedia.org.
Yep. And these tools, again, so this is one of those areas where it kind of makes your eyes glaze over. And so having these interesting consolidated these tool sets for you when you're the CIO, the CSO, everything in your company. This is how you can kind of keep abreast of this. It's not easy, and it's not always super fun, but we're trying to make it a little fun. So
It's mostly fun.
mostly fun.
Okay, speaking of fun, let's talk about privacy law. Okay. All right, dust off your thinking caps, everyone. We're going to move on to privacy law here. And let's talk about privacy. Before I get into the classes of privacy, CJ, is there a quiz question?
Yes, there is. What is the castle doctrine, and what does it have to do with privacy? I don't know how anyone's going to answer that correctly, but you can get close. If you get the keyword, 4 keywords, maybe 2.
CJ, does this mean I need a bigger house?
You might.
Do I need a moat?
Maybe you need
A
a smaller
drawbridge?
house. Oh,
I might need
was too much. Too much.
Too much? What about a dragon?
Everybody needs a dragon.
Okay, do you think we've given people enough time to respond?
Yeah. So the castle doctrine has to do with, and I'm not going to say a person's home is their castle, and it should be free from public view. So this is like the things you can find in the Constitution, that you should be secure in your papers and your things. Doesn't really mention privacy, as we talked about, but it's implied.
Thanks, CJ. That was awesome. So really what it does is it emphasizes the nature, a private nature of one's own dwelling. It's a place where we can be ourselves. We can, I don't know, let it all hang out, where our personality can really blossom. And when we talk about privacy, privacy is very much a human attribute. I mentioned our personalities, but it also has to do with feeling free to express who we are, what we are, and how we are. And just like with cybersecurity, we've got a lot of different definitions of privacy. And one of the things I like to say is privacy is the desire of people to freely choose the places, the times, the circumstances, and the degree with which we'll expose our own attitudes and behaviors to others. Here, I'll give you an example. Didn't sleep well last night. I am really crabby. I'm going to choose not to expose my girlfriends to my crabby nature until I've had a cup of coffee. So that could be an idea of privacy. So privacy is really about a person's idea to protect their individuality. We can use words like individuality, independence, dignity, integrity. And I know maybe some of you are thinking, oh my goodness, I thought this was a technology webinar. It is. We're getting there. But like I said earlier, we have assumptions about the word privacy or the word cybersecurity. And let's just unpack some of these assumptions. The idea of privacy and human dignity goes back a long way. It goes past Deb's 46 years of being on this earth, and maybe even longer than CJ. Did you know that privacy was addressed in Jewish law? There's references to privacy in the Islamic Quran. We have had legal protection of privacy rights since 1361, back when the Justices of Peace created a legal right to privacy. The Justices of Peace in England. And so as we talk about this very complex and richly threaded idea of privacy, let's talk about classes of privacy, because we're GRC people and we like to classify and label everything, don't we? Can I get an amen? Okay.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Okay, so we've got information privacy. We talked about FIPS, or the Fair Information Practices, already. Let's talk about body privacy. Don't worry, people, I'll keep it PG, maybe PG-13, but it won't be rated R. So we talk about body privacy. We are talking about body cavity searches. We are talking about genetic testing. We're talking about drug testing, and I probably didn't even hit all of them. So that's what we mean by bodily privacy. Let's talk about territorial privacy. This is placing limits on the ability of other people to intrude in my environment. For example, I'm on a webinar right now. Don't be opening the doors to my office. Don't intrude on my space here. This idea of territorial privacy not only applies to the castle doctrine or my home, like we talked about a little earlier, it also applies to public spaces. It involves my workplace space. So territorial privacy is much more complex than maybe you thought it was before. And then lastly, we also talk about communications privacy. This one, I bet our friends here on the webinar know what this means. It includes email, it includes postal mail, telephone conversations, et cetera, et cetera. So these are the 4 classes of privacy. Okay, I've touched on this a little bit, and I put this slide in here just for CJ. CJ, what is this a picture of?
I knew this was a privy.
Did you say pretty or privy?
Privy. My microphone, I've been told, is not very good, but I'm trying to get closer.
So for the youngins, what's a privy?
Potty.
Potty. Okay, so this is, you want to talk about lack of privacy in Roman times? Imagine sitting next to your neighbor on one of these. So we have historical and social origins of privacy. This was not a webinar on potty talk, so I'll move on for this. We talked a little bit earlier about human rights. We talked about fair information practices. One of the things I want to add there is the United Nations actually had this conversation, and they had a Declaration of Human Rights back in 1948 that says no one shall be subjected to the arbitrary inference with his privacy towards family, home, or correspondences. And then for the 4th point, CJ, what do we mean by common sense here?
Yeah, I injected that because this whole thing we were talking about law, how crazy the Privacy Act, the GDPR, the California laws, those things get overwhelming. But I mean, you should read them to get the background. But the bottom line on these things is do the right things, like protect your customers' information, right? You shouldn't be broadcasting things out. And so when you just apply common sense, you're like, well, geez, am I in compliance with the Colorado law on privacy? If you're doing basic, solid things, if you have control over your data, if you protect it with due diligence, common sense really goes a long way to protect you. You're normally going to steer clear of any problems with that stuff. But there are specific things in the GDPR like that you have to, like, oh, what the heck is the right to forget? I've never heard of that. I didn't know that common sense helped me with that. So you have to go look those things up. And that's where all those resources come in. But really, common sense is more than the Pareto, gets you more than 80% of the way there.
Oh, CJ, what's this Pareto thing you were?
The Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, that 80% of the effects of things come from 20% of your efforts. There's a lot of ways that Pareto breaks down. Italian statistician from a long time ago, about the time that I was going to high school, really.
Hey,
And
look at our friend Ryan put up a trivia question.
Yeah, you blew this one. You gave it all away. But go ahead. When was the first eavesdropping law created? It's about the time of the Black Death. Same time and
Okay.
place. Kelli mentioned it, so it's not really fair. This is kind of it's a gimme now.
I'm so sorry. So I told you that this might be PG or PG-13. This is also the first peeping Tom rule. TJ, do you want to explain that one?
Yeah, you're not allowed to look in people's windows, but it seems weird that they didn't come up with that until 1361. Oh, whoops.
There we go. Whoops.
Oh,
okay.
And who knew that was the Black Death? That's what I know now. That's when the Black Death happened, 1361 and 1369.
It was also when around that same year that Magna Carta, or the first set of rules and guidelines really to be committed to paper. If you ever get to go see the Magna Carta at the British Museum, the British Library, pretty amazing.
Wait,
okay.
Windows, someone just said Windows weren't invented until 1354. I'm pretty sure that was in the 80s, but okay.
Yeah, Windows 3.1.1. Come on, man.
I see how I did that. Go ahead.
Okay, let's get to the stuff that you've been waiting for. I know you guys have been on pins and needles. You want to talk about the US legal framework. I know this is some sexy stuff going on here. Let's talk about the US Constitution. And I believe, friends, we have a question about this.
Oh, crud. Surprised me with this one. True or false? I screwed this one up. Does the US Constitution contain the word privacy? It's a true or false. Come on, this is it.
Okay, so the US Constitution has amendments in it, and I think most of us are pretty familiar with the Fourth Amendment, that talks about illegal search and seizure. But have
The
we given
right of the
everyone-
people to be secure in their possessions and effects.
Exactly. So another issue, and I'm gonna dance around this very carefully. Remember back in 2022, we had the Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization, where the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade. Why am I bringing this up? Because Roe versus Wade provided constitutional restraints on the ability of state governments to outlaw abortion. When the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade, it gave leeway or gave powers back to the states to decide if abortion was legal or not. So this is one of a situation where we'll be talking about medical privacy, where the Constitution does impact something as a hot topic such as abortion. But before I move on to this, what is the answer to this question, CJ?
False. We have some good conversation going on around that about doesn't appear. Someone said it was made up, which is not necessarily true. Remember, every right is not identified in the Constitution because it says those things not identified here are reserved to the states and the people. So it doesn't say there's no such thing as a right to privacy. There's not one discussed in the Constitution.
Oh, CJ, that was good. Thank you. Okay, I think I'm not so good at changing slides. Have you noticed?
Mice are hard.
It's a trackball, actually. Let's talk about federal regulators and enforcement of privacy laws. Again, a very exciting and sexy topic, but hey, you need to know. So if you weren't paying attention to your American government class, your civics class, we're gonna help you out today. So these are the regulating entities or laws. No, I'm sorry, regulating entities that help with regulating and enforcing federal privacy laws. Some of these we've talked about already, the Federal Trade Commission. I don't believe we've mentioned the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC. But did you know that the U.S. Department of Transportation also regulates privacy law? Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, HHS, the Federal Reserve, the money makers, they also regulate and enforce privacy laws. And we also have the Office of the Comptroller of Currency. Do I have a question on this slide?
Are we on 24? Oh, we're on 15?
15.
No.
Okay, sorry. I left my can we do I do have a question. Ryan, I don't think this made it into the polling question, but okay, pay attention, everyone. Our friend Tim Fowler was on our pre-show banter, and Tim is our cyberspace guy. So Tim, you're not allowed to answer this one. Who, my friends, regulates space? Do you remember this, CJ?
Space cadets?
Oh, I do have it. Thank you, Ryan.
Slide 24.
Space. Like where we have no
The
gravity.
final frontier. I guessed the FTC. I was partially correct.
Partially correct.
The Air Force. Now, why isn't it Space Command? No, that's just the military branch. Space Force. Can I say, Kelly? Can I say? Can I?
Yes.
The FCC.
And the FTC.
Yeah. That's the partial. Partial.
All right. Excellent. I'm really glad folks are engaged in this. Oh, did I miss a slide? Anyway, I think I got my slides out of order. Anyway, so unless you've got all of the regulators memorized in you're like Mike on the TV show Suits and can remember everything the first time you read it. If you're more like me and you need references, I want to point you to a really good reference from IAPP, and it's their U.S. federal privacy legislation tracker. So if you want to see what's going on in Congress and what laws they're thinking about passing, this is actually a PDF that's updated regularly from IAPP, and you can see we've got a link to it there.
And we have,
Okay.
is this where you discuss the late breaking news on that?
I think I've got a privacy hot take coming up.
All right.
But part of the challenge with privacy, we've already mentioned is we covered the federal regulators and enforcement of privacy law, but the states have also, thrown the die in on privacy regulations and enforcement. And I'm sure some of you have dealt with this, and you might be scratching your head going, oh my goodness, oy vey, if I had a Jewish grandmother, how complex state regulations come to privacy laws. IAPP has a beautiful legislation tracker. You can see it was last updated on April 29th. You can see exactly where privacy legislation is for your state. And I don't expect you to memorize Utah, Wisconsin, California, but I would be curious to see what privacy legislation you have for the state you live in or the state that your organization mostly does business in.
Right. Who knows that? Everything. That's the problem everywhere, all the time with everybody.
Talk about complexity. I think privacy laws are more complex than trying to put together IKEA furniture. But I'm not mechanically inclined. Okay, but hey, here's something really exciting. But wait, there's more. Did you know that the beginning of April, something actually positive came out of Washington, D.C.?
Impossible.
I
Right.
know. We had bipartisan, bicameral. CJ, what does bicameral mean?
Both houses.
Both houses have proposed Privacy Rights Act of 2024. This, friends, this is something you want to keep your eyes on. In this proposed legislation, we've got some goodies in here. It seeks to establish national customer data privacy rights. Now, some of you may remember our president signed an executive order about selling American data to data brokers overseas. Okay, now let's take it a step further and talk about national consumer data privacy rights. Also, this proposed legislation would govern artificial intelligence and automated decision making. Those of you who are very familiar with GDPR know that GDPR already addresses automated decision making. It also imposes additional obligations on high impact social media companies such as X, Twitter, Facebook, yada, yada, yada. Did I yada, yada over the good parts? I think I may have. And also large data holders. But wait for it. This will supersede that hot mess of state privacy laws. And it will also allow a private right of action. And those of you who don't know what that term means, it gives you the right to sue in case something bad happens.
You really shocked me with that slide back there, though, about how many states have it in committee and how many actually accomplished it, because I thought it was 7, but there's more than 7 on the green there. That surprised me, and I thought I'd kind of keep up with that.
It's hard to keep up with. And like you mentioned, CJ, in your role, you've got privacy laws, you've got cybersecurity laws, you've got employment laws. Honestly, I don't know how you get anything done.
Common sense. That's how I do it.
You are blessed with common sense. Okay, back to our friend Jerry and his hot takes. Let's talk about some quick hot takes here. There's been some juicy ones. There was a juicy one that came up within the last week. FCC, Federal Communications Commission, just fined wireless carriers over $200 million over geolocation sharing claims. This, people, this is a big deal. This is the culmination of a 4-year investigation of telco carriers selling our data to third parties. I don't know about you, but I find this scandalous, absolutely scandalous. They don't need to know my browser history. Not that I've got anything to hide, but still, you know what? If I want to look up generic ibuprofen, hey, that should be nobody else's business. We just didn't know as consumers how these telcos were handling our sensitive data. They were selling it to third parties. So the FCC has been completing this 4-year investigation, and they actually fined these telcos $200 million. Now, so what does that mean? Well, the telcos are pushing back and they're suing FCC over it, saying that this claim is based on outdated programs. And quite honestly, there's some uncertainty with the regulatory case law when it comes to this. Again, not a lawyer. I have a feeling this is going to be in the courts for a couple of years. But this gives me an opportunity to remind you about something. And there's a bit of confusion about this. And sorry, CJ, I just came up with this a couple hours ago. Let me talk briefly about the difference between opt-in and opt-out. Sometimes you'll see a screen that pops in and you have to actually physically, overtly take actions to opt in to have your data shared. You get that, right? You click the button and you say, yes, count me in. I raise my hand. I want to be included. And then there's the other way that organizations go about this. And if they say, if you don't tell us you don't want to be a part of this, we're going to do whatever we want. So you have to explicitly opt out. So if you're not familiar with the difference between implicitly opting in and explicitly opting out, please familiar yourselves with this, because I believe some organizations actually try and confuse us on this point. Okay, couple other hot takes. The FTC has an updated HIPAA health breach notification rule. I'm running out of time, so I got to speed this up here. Also, there was a GDPR complaint filed over alleged AI chatbot hallucinations. Go check out our Talking About the News podcast. We talked about this on Monday. Okay, so I'm going to have to speed through this one pretty quickly too there. Oh, pistachio ice cream. Okay, distracted. So there are some flavors of privacy, and I know you guys all know this, but let me just go through them fairly quickly. We've got medical privacy. It is overseen and enforcement happens under HIPAA. We've got the High-Tech Act. We've got confidentiality of substance use, genetic information, and the 21st Century Cures Act of 2016. If you're not familiar with that, basically, that's encouragement for medical research to be shared with other medical resource organizations. Let's talk about financial privacy. I'm sure a lot of you know this already. You see all those acronyms? See why I put up the alphabet soup icon earlier in the presentation? We've got FCRA, FACTA, GLBA. We've got Dodd-Frank. We've got regulations of electronic funds transfer. We've got requiring disclosure under anti-money laundering laws. If you haven't downloaded a copy of these slides, you may want to, because it's kind of nice to have all these regulations in one place. Okay, we've got education privacy. We've got the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, FERPA, and we've got Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act. So there's a lot more privacy laws than most of us realize. And boy, did I have fun researching all this. We have telecommunications and marketing privacy. We've got the Controlling the Assault of Non-Associated Pornography and Marketing Act of 2023, the CAN-SPAM Act. We are talking about that on pre-show banter. We've got the Telecommunications Act, the Cable Communications Act. Are you getting tired of hearing about all these laws? Pretty crazy. Do we have a trivia question on this?
I think we already asked it. Who regulates space? We asked it back on 15 for some reason.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I'm out of rhythm here.
It's all right.
Okay, yeah, there was just a lot of loss, and I see we're getting close. We've got 10 minutes left in the presentation. Oh, so I'm going to pick it up here. Workplace privacy. Oh my goodness, we've got HIPAA, we've got FCRA, FLCA, OSHA, ABC, and 1, 2, 3. We've got the Electronic Surveillance, Wiretap, and Electronic Communications Privacy Act. To think that we're not doing anything with privacy in the United States is wrong and inaccurate. as you can see, we've got a lot of laws. So that proposal legislation we talked about a few slides ago would be really cool. Sort of like, can I give a Lord of the Rings analogy? One ring to rule them all. And guide, as Jason said earlier, guardrails when it comes around, and it comes to privacy laws.
You wonder why lawyers have jobs. Like,
Oy vey.
it's complex.
So if you really dig this and you have nothing else to do on a Saturday night, not Friday, because we've got movie night, if you didn't see Will's notice in Discord, but Saturday morning, you want to curl up with a cup of coffee. We've got Privacy Law Fundamentals book from IAPP, a couple books. We've got a podcast on privacy engineering. If you're not familiar with epic.org, they're a privacy advocacy group. Check out the resources. Okay. Artificial intelligence governance. Okay, so artificial intelligence is not little green men. I'm not confirming or denying that there are little green men, but you can talk about that amongst yourselves. Just like with cybersecurity, we don't have an agreed upon definition for artificial intelligence. But let me give you my 2 cents on this. So artificial intelligence at a very basic level is machines performing tasks that normally require human intelligence. But I want to broaden your understanding of artificial intelligence, if I may, my friends. AI really should be considered a socio-technological system. What I mean by that is AI isn't just about machines and data centers. AI influences society. And wait for it, society also influences artificial intelligence. So there's a group of stakeholders with artificial intelligence that you may not have considered. And those stakeholders are those people who study society, who have societal influences like anthropologists, sociologists, and other people working in the social sciences. So artificial intelligence isn't just about machine learning. It's about this balance between being humans and being people, as well as the technology systems we're using. Okay, so since this is such a big topic, how do we approach this? I've mentioned OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, before, but what they're trying to do is they're trying to put all these different uses of artificial intelligence into a classification system. And can I get 2 thumbs up on this? This is what us GRC people really like: classification and putting things with labels. We think about this in terms of people and planet. We're talking about how it could affect people, how it could affect human rights, society, the environment. We've got the economic context, which is sectors or vertical industries such as healthcare or finance or education. How does the business function of the model, of the AI model, affect us? Are we using AI to transcript our meeting notes? Are we using AI to create drugs? Whatever. It talks about how the AI is deployed. The third one, we've got data input. What type of data was used in the model? How was the data collected? And again, PG-13 here, was it clean or dirty data? We don't know. We got to be able to know what kind of data was put into these models. Speaking of the models, these are the technical details of how the model was constructed and how it's being used. And then the 5th classification or bucket we're talking about here are the tasks and the output. What tasks are the AI systems performing? What are the outputs and what are the resulting actions? Now, CJ, I think you'll really like this slide because this isn't just about AI governance, but this is a way to think about governance as a whole, if it's privacy or cyber law. It talks about the why and the how. We address the why with principles. Fair information, we've got OECD, we've got UNESCO's recommendations. The why is here are the principles we're trying to uphold. And how are we going to do that? The how is with frameworks. We've got ISO, we've got the NIST cybersecurity framework, we've got EEE recommendations, IEEE, excuse me, I misspoke there, and HUDERA. Okay, so if you're thinking that we don't have any AI governance laws, guidelines, or standards, Oh, my friends, they're out there already. I mentioned OECD already. There is an EU AI Act. The final draft was voted on and agreed upon at the end of April. So expect to see that soon. It has a lot of the same flavor as GDPR. It is a long read, but it's interesting. It talks about all of those things we talked about with the framework and labeling. NIST has the IA risk artificial intelligence risk management framework, and IEC also has governance around AI technologies. Okay, we are getting close to the top of the hour, and CJ, I really want to hear what you have to say about this slide.
So we talked about, you and I are talking about in people's perception that this is dry, this is the boring stuff. We all talk about that. Like laws, like a lot of times people who are in cybersecurity, this is not our primary focus. It's like, it's just very important stuff. As Jason talked about, you got to have these guidelines. You have to understand the darn law. I don't know that sometimes the technology stuff is all that. It depends on your set of interests, right? My eyes can glass over when you're talking about grepping and doing this and reverse hack engineering, double slam. So what is exciting? It's like, what is exciting is what you need to do your job and accomplish your mission. So all of us here are about protecting information, and that involves both the technical and the awareness of things. So Kelli threw the alphabet soup and a half out there, and a lot of that stuff, I was like, holy crap, I've never heard of that. It is hard to keep up with. Community is the way to do this. Even these things, it just brings a little bit of awareness. I know it was like the lightning round in Jeopardy here, but that's because there's a lot to cover, and we just want a little bit. We don't want to dig in, make anyone an expert, but GRC is cool and necessary in its own way. And the key is always, right, getting it done with the least amount of effort possible, right? Low-hanging fruit, Pareto principle, getting 80% of your accomplishment done with 20% of the effort. So hacks, that's what hacking is all about. What are the secrets? What are the cheats? What are the shortcuts? So trying to point those out for you, give you a little bit of awareness and warn you when you might be stepping on a big old landmine.
Oh, I like, excuse me. I really like that, CJ. And I think that's our presentation. We may have a couple minutes for questions, and I can't wait to see our friends from content and community.
Hey, well done.
Hey,
I saw a question for you, Jason.
Okay.
Where can they get the GRC t-shirt?
The GRC t-shirt. Good question. Don't know yet, but if people want the GRC t-shirt, let us know so that way we know how many to print. All right, so we don't have time for questions today. There was a bunch, but I think you covered everything really well. And so Kelli and CJ, if you want to come back in a couple months and let us know what's been different with GRC. Also, if people have questions, feel free to drop them into Discord. Kelli, you're very active in Discord. CJ, you're active during webcast in Discord. So Kelli, if you see any questions in there that you want to respond to or reply to, that would be fantastic. Over the next week or so, as you have time. Not an obligation, but if you have time. And so thank you everyone for joining us today. The webcast is going to end here in just a second. And then what's going to happen is Logan's going to stick around, and Kelli, if you want to stick around too, CJ, you want to stick around too. We're going to talk about what it's like to do business with Black Hills. And we do this every once in a while because sometimes people actually want to do business with us and they're not quite sure what that's like. And so we're going to do that. So right now, thank you so much for joining us today. If you want to stick around, please do. If not, it's not mandatory. It's not required. We try never to do this stuff until after we're done or before we start. The webcast is the webcast. It's not an opportunity for us to sell anything. So thank you for joining us today. Kelli and CJ, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. Kelli, I would love for you to give one final thought. So if you could sum up everything today, what would that final thought be?
Jason, my final thought is governance, risk, and compliance is sexy work. It may not have a black hoodie, but when we're looking at the headlines and we see these fines from regulatory agencies, you could be the person who could save your organization a $200 million fine. So yes, you are doing important work. It may not be as sexy as a hacker.
It's more than just getting hacked.
Yeah.
There's other people that will kill you besides the evil hackers, right?
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. If you want to stick around to find out what it's like to do business with Black Hills, we appreciate that. You don't have to. All right. So I'm going to do the. All right. Okay. So webcast over. If you're sticking around, hey, thanks for sticking around. So we got Logan here. He's on the what we call business capture team. Because like it's weird, right? Because we don't have like a sales team. We're not like going out and cold calling people. So Logan, what's your typical day like as a business capture person at Black Hills?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me on. So our typical day entails a influx of clients wanting to do business with BHIS, wanting to learn about the company, want to learn about pen testing or any of our other 500 services that we offer here at Black Hills. So we generally hop on calls with clients. We understand their needs, kind of what they're looking to discuss on the call. If they have questions, we try to bring in the experts such as Kelli or CJ or the digital forensics and incident response team members, you name it. Our goal is to get you information around Black Hills information security and our services here.
We also tend to be really quick. I've had customers, right, Logan, come back and talk to us about like, because our calls are 30 minutes. A lot of times we can get that done really quick. Some companies are kind of shocked, like, aren't you going to show us a PowerPoint presentation? Like, no, we don't do PowerPoint presentations.
Yeah, very non-traditional. We try to customize it to what the client is expecting out of the call, right? We always ask them that. Are they just brand new to Black Hills? Have they never heard of us? Or have they been longtime followers of the community and the content? And we really don't have to dive into the whole spiel of who we are and what we do. Others are new and want to hear that. So we totally customize it to the clients that are on the call. And yeah, the whole experience is pretty fast. You reach out via, the contact us form. We usually get a call on the calendar within the next business day. We hop on a quick call with you and we can usually deliver some sort of statement of work or a sample offering of what we deliver to you within that same day, if not next business day. So the entire process we hear is really quickly, whereas some folks we've heard in the industry, it takes 2 days or 3 days just to get a response from a company. So
or 3 meetings.
Yeah, exactly.
So Logan, as someone who works on pure commission, right? Like, do you just hound everybody until they finally do business with us?
So when I first started, CJ and John and Brian, they had to beat the salesman out of me because I came from a traditional sales organization where I did the cold calling and I hounded the clients and tried to get them everything they need. We are very non-traditional here. We're not quota or commission based, so we really do what's best for our clients and the team here and our testers. So yeah, we really focus on develop. In fact, we talk people out of spending money with us more than we talk people into spending
We
money.
suck at capitalism.
Yes, we do. So yeah, we try to get all the information so that the team can make a really well-informed decision. They know what they're buying when they sign up with BHIS. If they're not ready to move forward with us, we always provide them with as much information as we can for future budgetary numbers or services or a roadmap of testing options or other services we can help in the future with.
Yeah,
Jason, you know how you guys aren't marketing your content and community, you know that?
Yeah.
Like they're not the sales department. And I remember John bringing me in and he told me what I had to do. And I'm like, I've never had a sales job. He goes, you still don't. It's like, your job is to listen to people, talk to them about the company, find out what their problems are, and see if we have solutions for them. So we call them business consultant, but they're a security consultant. They're talking about, hey, what are your security problems? What do you need? Most people say, I need a pen test. So they know exactly what they're doing. Sometimes they don't. And so our whole thing is just talking to them. And Logan said, we put you in the driver's seat. You get on the call. The first thing we ask you, how can I help you today? Some people are offended, like, well, I'm going to schedule a sales call. You're like, okay.
And Kelli, GRC is new for us. We've been doing it now. You're doing GRC work. So what's it like to do GRC work with Black Hills?
It's different, Jason, in a good way. And what I mean by that, when you're doing GRC work in a regulated industry, if it's finance, banking, you want to talk about tight guardrails. It's very spelled out. You don't have a lot of freedom, and it's been around for a long time. And they kind of roll their eyes and go, "Oh, there's the GRC person. Don't sit by her in the cafeteria. She's no fun." And I like to be fun. And GRC is fun at Black Hills because, as you can tell, I'm more of a law geek than a tech geek. So when I don't understand something, there's a whole group of really brilliant technicians and technical hackers who can explain things to me. So I feel more freedom doing GRC at a Black Hills type organization versus a bank.
Kelly, thank you. I never told you I was going to ask you that question, and appreciate you. So Logan, all right. So they schedule, like, what do people schedule a pen test? And what's it, like a day, 2 days, like 5 days? Like, what's a pen test like?
Absolutely. So we've got, I think, 20 plus different flavors of pen testing options, and we really try to customize it to the client's needs. So we will, like CJ mentioned, we try to keep it a fun, collaborative conversation to understand the needs, what they're looking to get out of the test. A pen test can range from 3 days to a month long. So it really depends on the type of test. From a scheduling perspective, which is always, good to talk about. A lot of people wonder, hey, can we get started next week? Can we get started next month? BHIS tends to have a little bit of a lead time because we are a smaller company. We generally book out about a 60-day lead time from contracts being signed. So that's kind of where we schedule into currently. And the reason why, too, we like to have a rules of engagement call with our clients as well, which will take place at least 3 to 4 weeks before the actual start date of the test. So this is a chance for your team to meet the tester, talk through getting access, credentials, whatever we need, talk through communication protocol to ensure that the test starts on time and we're not worrying about that setup or any questions when the test arrives. So there's supposed to be no surprises when the test comes up. Everyone's on board. Jason, did that answer the question for you?
Yeah. So what happens if something during the test, if there's some kind of issue during a test? Because every once in a while you're doing a pen test, you're actually doing hacking and something happens. So what then?
Yes. First, SCJ would say, we never BS you and say nothing's going to happen, right? Anyone that tells you that, that's an immediate red flag. So stuff does happen. It's very rare that it does happen here, though. It happens just a handful of times over 1,000 plus engagements that we do on an annual basis. What's cool is that your team has direct access to the tester. They're only working on your engagement for that allotted time. So you have the tester's cell phone number. A lot of time they create Slack channels or Teams channels to work really collaboratively with our testers. It's almost an education focused pen test, right? Where we're working alongside your team members if they're looking for that type of approach. If something does go wrong, you can pick up the phone, talk to the tester. You've got CJ's number as an escalation point. You've got our project manager. We will absolutely look into what's going on, pause the testing, help look into remediation efforts so that we can get back on board and get results for your team immediately.
So I heard John one time say, I think it was this, don't hire a dentist that's available tomorrow.
That's a great one. I think
Yeah.
it's from the Little Shop of Horrors.
Yeah. So explain, like, why don't you hire a dentist that's available tomorrow? So I think it comes from, like, don't hire a pen testing firm that's available tomorrow.
Yeah, no, that's I think this has kind of been a very important conversation with a lot of our clients recently, because they scratch their heads. Why are you booking out 60 or 75 days? That's so long. And we try to encourage our clients to be proactive and reach out and get all the information they need well in advance to make sure they know they've got the right vendor they're working with. But when you're a pen testing firm, you've got testers here that are responsible for producing reports and results for our clients, right? So when we have testers just kind of sitting around, hanging out, waiting for someone to come in and do a pen test, we're essentially losing money on that. Now, we're not, as CJ said, we're proudly sucking at capitalism. So we're trying to break even here at Black Hills Information Security at the very worst. So we're really focused on maintaining our quality in the reputation that we've built at Black Hills Information Security with our testing and that's how majority of our folks find us today, is through our reputation, whether they looking at us at Reddit, they've heard about us from another firm, we've been referred in by friends or family. We really focus on keeping our reputation of what we've built it as today. So we try bringing on the right amount of resources within that as well too. We've found ourselves in scenarios where we're booking out further than a 60+ day time frame, and that is when we start to look at bringing on other resources to help loosen up that time frame. So quality is something that we focus on, and we're very much in demand here at Black Hills Information Security, where folks want to do business with us. Really, it's just working through the contracting side of the house and making sure we get some time on the calendar for you.
Last question. So the reason like we do this a couple of times a year is because summer is coming. And for us, the summertime is when people realize that they have Q3 and Q4 pen test requirements. And then they come in and they're like, can I get one next week? And so when would be the best time to start reaching out about Q3 and Q4 pen test?
Right now is a fantastic time. We're already starting to proactively kind of book engagements into that time for a lot of our clients. We're reaching out to our clients that have done business with us as well too, trying to get them on the calendar and scheduled in a very proactive fashion. So we are not the sales driven where we're going to be knocking on your door and say, hey, half off pen testing, book now. You know, we really focus on making sure we're getting the right businesses in that want to do business with BHIS. They're a good fit for us, and we like to make sure we get and meet their timelines and timeframes that they prefer as well too.
I actually have one more question. All right, CJ, this question is for you because we've done a webcast before, like what to expect when expecting a pen test kind of thing. Does everyone need to get their security perfect before they hire a pen testing company?
So that's one of the things that's one of the things John said is like, because education is so at the core, right? John started off in SANS, and we took a teaching aspect. In fact, we tend to hire people who do some kind of teaching because it's education. And so you don't delay education. Well, I'm going to wait to take that test until I know all the answers. I'm not going to take a course. No, we want to dive in. There are reasons maybe to wait, but usually it's like, no, let's get in there and see what's going to kill you tomorrow. And pen testing is iterative. It's an ongoing thing that you do. So a lot of times delaying, just waiting until we're secure to get tested. We're about collaboration, figuring things out, education you, and it's the pen test, how we document it. It's to help you identify, oh, what is it going to take to fix this? So that's kind of that holistic approach. And I know that people are sitting around here, you know, the people are on these things. This is why we like working with our customers, because they're like-minded. I watch Discord and I'm laughing my ass off. It's fun to work with these people because of our approach, and our approach attracts you, and that's what makes it cool.
And then I lied. I have one more question. Logan, so final question, literally final question. Continuous pen testing. It's a new service that we provide. Tell me about continuous pen testing and why a company should think about doing continuous pen testing.
Absolutely. No, this is an offering that we're coming up on year 2 of, and we were kind of building the plane as we were flying it. So we weren't sure what exactly we were getting into, right? But after being a year plus into this offering, we've heard nothing but great results from our clients. And the clients that moved forward with the service have been BHIS clients. They've done testing with us before. High level, what a continuous pen testing is pretty much an extension of your team when it comes to penetration testing, right? We are moving away from the big deliverable that you get at an end of a pen test, which is a 100+ page report. We are trying to move into a more actionable reporting system where we're utilizing like Jira or a ticketing system where we're finding these results, whether it's externally or internally, and we're providing it to your team. So we're moving away from the big report. The other thing is it's traditional pen testing has always been a snapshot of time of what your environment looks like, right? There's new attack techniques, new vulnerabilities that are consistently, coming to surface. Whereas when you're subscribed to an offering that's taking a look at your environment externally and internally throughout an entire year, you get much better results, right? You're getting to test your environment against these new attack techniques and see how your environment stacks up, if it's applicable towards you. So our team is envisioning this to be a year-long subscription, which provides very actionable results for our clients throughout a year-long subscription. It's more opportunistic. With pen testing, we've always been derived with a limited time to be successful in an engagement, right? So having a year long to be successful and be more opportunistic, be more flexible. A lot of our clients stand up new infrastructure, web applications, they have different concerns within their environment. They bring that to our testers where they can get a look at their security throughout an entire year long subscription.
So we've got a 0 day, Yos, and when our researcher found the 0 day, we immediately rolled it against all of our CPT customers, right? Now we will use that if someone wants to schedule a pen test or a red team, sorry, or a yes, 0 day. It's so magic to have it. It's like lightning in a bottle. And I think we're going to have a webcast probably, or a blog at least pretty soon. We've done the disclosure and they're not going to fix it, so we get to keep using it. So
another thing that it's not is there are some offerings out there that say they're a continuous pen testing or pen testing as a service, and you get this year-long view of penetration testing. Some of those offerings are just automated, right? Where they're spitting out automated scans, automated reports, and calling it penetration testing over a year-long time frame, right? This has been built from some of our top red teamers and testers at Black Hills Information Security and is maintained by it. So we pretty much have a pool of some of our top testers that have built this out and continue to work on this offering for Black Hills Information Security. So it's very much manual testing that we do as part of this offering as well.
And selfishly, any of that money that's above breaking even is what we do to get to create zines and comic books and all the other stuff that we get to do and support conferences and events. So I am grateful for all of our clients and customers who do work with us, because that gives us the opportunity to be able to do the things that we love doing and proudly suck at capitalism. So thank you. Thanks, Logan. Thanks, CJ. Thanks, Kelly. Thank you for sharing your knowledge today. Thank you for sharing what it's like to do business with us. And if you ever want to do business with us, you know how to do the contact us form. Reach out to us and you'll meet with Logan or Tom or Brian, and they'll just sit down and, like they just said, they're not going to hound you. They're not going to come after you. They're not going to work to get that commission check. They're going to say, hey, what do you need? And let's talk about that and figure out what you actually do need. And with that, I think that's it. Thanks,
that's
everybody.
it.
That's
Go
it.
home. Are you
All
still
right.
here?
Yeah.
Go home.
Kill it with fire, Ryan. Kill
Go
it.
home.